Now at 10, the BBC News with Clive, Myrie.
At 10, a suspected Israeli strike on an Iranian consulate building in Syria kills 2 top Iranian military commanders. Tehran warns its response will be decisive. Israel says it won't comment.
Here in northern Israel, there's a lot of Israeli military air activity above me, and the raid in Damascus was the biggest single escalation so far in the deepening war between Israel, Iran, and its so-called axis of resistance.
Also tonight, the Harry Potter author J.K. Rowling says Scotland's new anti-hate crime law is a threat to free speech. The First Minister disagrees.
Unless your behaviour is threatening or abusive and intends to stir up hatred, then you have nothing to worry about in terms of the new offences being created.
Good news on energy costs. A new price cap has come into force.
Oh, bloody hell! Did you see the tail?
And the dramatic moment, a humpback whale had a close encounter with a Cornish lifeboat crew. A very good evening to you. A suspected Israeli strike has destroyed an Iranian consulate building in the Syrian capital, Damascus, killing at least 7 people, including the top 2 commanders in the powerful Iranian Revolutionary Guards. The attack happened at around 5 p.m. local time in the upmarket Mezid district of Damascus, with the multi-story building flattened right next to the Iranian embassy. Iran's foreign minister says Tehran's response will be decisive, while Israel says it doesn't comment on foreign media reports. There have been hundreds of attacks on Iranian-linked targets in Syria by Israel in the past few years. Jeremy Bowen has the very latest from northern Israel.
A few minutes after the attack, the building in Iran's diplomatic compound in a well-off central area of Damascus seems to be on fire. The Israeli strike destroyed the Iranian consulate. It was a precision attack against a senior commander who will have worked hard to keep his movements secret. Despite that, Israeli intelligence must have tracked General Mohammad Reza Zahedi to the meeting he was having in Damascus. He was the senior Iranian general in Syria and Lebanon, 2 countries Iran regards as critical parts of what it says is its system of forward defense, the so-called axis of resistance. In Damascus, the Syrian foreign minister said the general and the others who died were killed by Israel.
We strongly condemn this criminal act carried out by the Zionist enemy. These attacks can only be met with further steadfastness, further support for the Palestinian people and further resistance, whether in Iraq or in southern Lebanon.
And the Iranian ambassador to Damascus hinted at retaliation.
Definitely the Zionist regime knows better than anyone that such crimes and violating international law will have its response in an appropriate time.
The raid is the biggest single escalation yet in the deepening war that has been fought since the Hamas attacks last October between Israel and Iran's network of allies here in the north of Israel, across the border in South Lebanon and in the wider Middle East. Since the beginning of this year, exchanges of fire between Israel and Hezbollah, the Iran-backed militia and political movement in Lebanon, have become more intense. Israeli jets have been raiding deeper into Lebanon and Syria. In Iran tonight, protesters went out onto the streets of Tehran, chanting "Death to Israel." The Iranian regime believes its security depends on deterring its enemies. The raid on Damascus showed that it's not doing that. The question now is what the Iranians will do to show that they are not deterred by Israel. A response might not be immediate or straightforward and is likely to be calibrated to reflect Iran's reluctance to get involved in an all-out war. Jeremy Bowen, BBC News, in northern Israel.
We'll have more from Jeremy in a few minutes, but in Gaza, after 2 weeks of heavy bombardment, Israel says it's completed its military operation at the territory's biggest hospital, and all the troops have now left the area. Well, as you can see from these latest satellite images, most of Al-Shifa's medical complex has been left in ruins. During the operation in northern Gaza, the Israeli Defense Force says it killed 200 terrorists, claiming Hamas had regrouped inside the grounds. Palestinian media is reporting that a mother and her son, who were both doctors, were also killed. Lucy Williamson has the very latest from Jerusalem.
Shifa's protection was its identity. Hard to recognise it as a hospital now. The surgery unit, emergency department, wards and corridors. Imploded, anonymised by war. Patients like Jana, trapped inside during the 2 weeks of fighting.
They didn't provide water for the last 2 days. There were sounds of shooting and bombing. The explosions from the artillery lit up the room we were in and shook the whole building.
They let in a very small amount of food that wasn't enough. We were 150 patients and 50 medical staff. No treatment, no medicine, and constant bombing for 24 hours.
Israel called this a precise and limited operation against Hamas fighters. It says 200 gunmen were killed and hundreds of people arrested, and that its right to defeat Hamas trumps the protection hospitals have under international law. At home, Israel's war with Hamas is popular. Israel's Prime Minister is not. For months, Benjamin Netanyahu has been caught between the demands of hostage families and his own hard-right government. Now, pre-war protests over his judicial reforms are resurfacing too. Tents have once again appeared outside the Israeli parliament with the same simple demand: go. Protesters here won't be satisfied, even if Benjamin Netanyahu brings home the hostages or dismantles Hamas. There are new posters. You're in charge, you're responsible, they say. But they wanted him out before the war. Now they're back, and they want him gone even more. Karen has protested for years against the man known here as Bibi. If Bibi Netanyahu brings the hostages home, will you support him to stay?
I don't see the relations between the two. He needs to go just for the fact that 250 people in his tenure were kidnapped. He needs to go. It doesn't matter if he's bringing them back.
The national unity that followed the Hamas attacks is breaking down. 6 months on, Israeli soldiers are still fighting an old enemy in Gaza, but Benjamin Netanyahu is facing his own at home. Lucy Williamson, BBC News, Jerusalem.
Let's rejoin Jeremy in northern Israel. The war continues in Gaza as Israel seemingly, Jeremy, targets Iranian Revolutionary Guards commanders in Syria. What could all this mean for the region, do you think?
Well, I think what's happened, and it's clear that Israel has carried out this raid, is a major escalation in this shadow war that's been going on in parallel with what's been happening in Gaza. Now, tonight, even at the time I've been standing here, there's been an awful lot of Israeli military air activity. I don't know if you can hear it at the moment. Lots of jets in the sky. Now, I suspect they're on patrol. I suspect they are there to try and knock out any missiles that are directed towards Israel, because I think the Israelis are challenging Iran by doing this, and their allies, Hezbollah, in Lebanon, not too far from here as well, because both of those groups, the Iranians and their allies, have shown they don't really want to get involved in an all-out war. And perhaps Israel, knowing it has the support of America, is prepared to risk that and to push hard. Now, I think Iran will want to respond to this. Maybe not immediately, we'll have to see. It's all speculation. But I think the question is really what Iran will do and the degree to which it will try to hit back to show, if you like, to show Israel it's no pushover.
Indeed, and we can hear those jets overhead, Jeremy. Many thanks for that. Jeremy Bowen, live there in northern Israel. Now, the Harry Potter author J.K. Rowling has invited police to arrest her if officers believe she's committed an offence under Scotland's new hate crime law. From today, it's an offence to stir up hatred relating to someone's age, disability, religion, sexual orientation or transgender identity. Ms. Rowling, who lives in Edinburgh, says the legislation is a threat to free speech. But the First Minister, Humza Yousaf, says it will guard people from what he calls a rising tide of hatred. Here's Jeremy Cook.
This is a nation struggling to strike a balance between liberty and safety, between freedom of speech and protection from hatred. These protesters think the new hate crime law gets that balance wrong, but the First Minister disagrees.
I'm very proud of the Hate Crime Act. We have seen, I'm afraid, not just in the UK and of course Scotland, but right across many parts of the world, this kind of rising tide of hatred against people because of their protected characteristics. So unless your behaviour is threatening or abusive and intends to stir up hatred, then you have nothing to worry about in terms of the new offences being created.
But what exactly is in the Hate Crime Act? The law creates a crime of stirring up hatred relating to age, disability, religion, sexual orientation, transgender identity or being intersex. It also includes racial discrimination, although that was already illegal under an old law. A publicity campaign is now encouraging people to report behaviour which crosses a line from offensive, shocking or disturbing to threatening and abusive. But one group is not protected by the law: women. J.K. Rowling, who lives in Edinburgh, says that is wrong. On social media today, the author posted about several trans people who are protected, concluding, "I'm currently out of the country, but if what I've written here qualifies as an offence under the terms of the new Act, I look forward to being arrested when I return to the birthplace of the Scottish Enlightenment."
There will be a rush to report people to the police, including high-profile individuals. I imagine that there will be many complaints, for example, made against J.K. Rowling. So I think that, yes, there is a high chance the police will be overwhelmed with a lot of complaints, some of which will be purely spurious.
The Scottish Government says it's planning a separate law to tackle hatred and harassment of women. But for now, senior police officers are worried about the impact of this act, with the complaints already coming in. James Cook, BBC News, Edinburgh.
Energy prices in England, Wales and Scotland have fallen to their lowest level for 2 years. The regulator's new price cap has come into force, meaning a household using a typical amount of energy will pay around £1,690 a year. That's a saving of more than £200. The rules are different in Northern Ireland, where prices are also falling. The cap sets the maximum amount suppliers can charge for each unit of gas and electricity, but not the total bill. So if you use more, you'll pay more. Here's Kevin Peachy.
Spring has arrived in the gardens of this East Kent community centre, promising warmer months ahead.
I love the daffodils.
But locals are still feeling the chilling impact winter bills had on their finances and lifestyle.
It's been quite a harsh winter, and I haven't been able to afford to have the central heating on. So it's been rather challenging, and so I've been using hot water bottles. I invested in a battery-operated vest.
Inside the centre we find Kaz, who's found ways to stay warm too.
Wrap up in a blanket or one of those big snoods that you get now, and big fluffy slippers.
And how paying the bills has been a juggling act.
Some months you rob Peter to pay Paul, and that's just the way it is. And as long as you let people know that you're struggling, but I'm not the only person who's struggling. There's thousands and thousands. Quite a few of my friends are struggling as well, you know. So, but hopefully, fingers crossed, things are going to start coming down now, which is going to make it a lot more manageable with everything.
Manageable because today the cost of each unit of gas and electricity in the home has come down. Energy prices are now at their lowest level for 2 years, but at the same time some government support is being wound down and other bills, water, council tax, phone and broadband are on the way up. Financial pressures aren't over, they just look a bit different.
that will pay for itself on the energy saving.
That's why this former mining community is part of a project sharing good habits to save energy and money. If you use more energy, you pay more. So Sarah, who leads the discussion, says simple tips are best, even at this time of year.
3 tips would be: 1, your hot water setting. If it's too hot to wash your hands with, your boiler's too high. 2, your drafts from your chimney to your windows and your doors, manage those drafts. And 3, your showers. You need to stick to a 4 minutes. Find a 4-minute song, less Bohemian Rhapsody in the shower. And again, that's £70 a year just on water and energy that you could save.
One water charity has even compiled a 4-minute song playlist, keeping people here and around the country to time and their finances on song. Kevin Peachy, BBC News.
A new study has found more than 250 people a week in England may have died unnecessarily last year due to very long waits for a bed in A&E. The figures come from the Royal College of Emergency Medicine. The government says it's making progress in reducing waiting times, including adding thousands of beds to increase capacity. Here's Dominic Hughes.
February saw the highest number of attendances to A&E on record. And despite some small improvements to waiting times, tens of thousands of people have faced long waits. It's well established that longer waits, particularly for those who need to be admitted, increase the chance of death. NHS data for England shows that in 2023, more than 1.5 million patients waited 12 hours or more in major emergency departments. Of those, around 1 million were waiting to be admitted to a hospital bed. Using a respected statistical model, the Royal College of Emergency Medicine has calculated that when looking solely at patients awaiting admission, an average of 268 excess deaths are likely to have occurred each week last year. With the number of people attending A&E increasing, the pressure is unrelenting. And experts say the number of excess deaths, over and above what you might expect, is not surprising.
So these findings won't surprise anybody who's working in an emergency department in our country at the moment. Far too many people are spending too long in our departments, and we know that this is harmful. The scientific evidence shows that people who wait more than 6 hours before they get admitted, you can start to plot an increase in their mortality. And we know that from between 6 to 12 hours, there is an increase in mortality.
The Department of Health and Social Care says it's making progress in reducing waiting times, including an extra 5,000 permanent staffed beds this winter. But doctors warn that what used to be described as winter pressures are a thing of the past. That pressure now lasts all year round. Dominic Hughes, BBC News.
Labour has lost control of a council in Lancashire after all its councillors resigned from the party en masse. The leader of Pendleborough Council was among 20 to leave, criticising senior officials in the party. Hannah Miller is here. One assumes all this has its roots in the war in Gaza.
Yeah, it's been described as the biggest mass resignation of councillors under Keir Starmer's leadership. 20 councillors, as you say, in total from 3 different local authorities in the Pendle area will all now sit as independents. Several of them had previously been critical of the party's stance on Gaza. Now, though, they're accusing the party of stifling free speech by controlling anything that any councillor has to say. The BBC has been told that several of those who resigned had been spoken to by the party after concerns were raised about their conduct, including allegations of anti-Semitism. If we step back here, it's not the first time that we have seen tensions between the Labour leadership and representatives in some parts of Lancashire, particularly those areas with higher Muslim populations. The official Labour response, though, tonight is simply that their focus is on winning the general election to improve people's lives.
Sure. OK. Hannah, thank you. Hannah Miller. The sports brand Adidas has banned German football fans from buying their country's kit with the number 44 on the back. Now, the decision came after media comments that it resembled the symbol used by Nazi SS units in World War II. Adidas denied that this was intentional and said they would block any fan personalising their shirt with those specific numbers. Ipswich Town have gone top of football's championship after scoring a 97th minute winner against promotion-chasing Southampton. Jeremy Sarmiento scored to make it 3-2 at the death after Southampton were reduced to 10 men. Ipswich go 2 points clear of Leicester, who also won today, but have a game in hand. The humpback whale has had a lucky escape after being cut free from fishing ropes off the Cornish coast.
Oh, bloody hell! Did you see the tail? Christ.
The large adult whale, known locally as Ivy, got entangled yesterday but was successfully cut free by crews from Penley Lifeboat. Rescuers say Ivy was lucky because she was able to surface and breathe. Otherwise, there could have been a very different outcome. We're going to look at the weather news now, and Louise Lear is here. Spring has sprung, one hopes.
It has, Clive, and actually at this time of year there's quite a lot of strength in the sunshine, so you get light winds, you get some sunshine, you're going to get some warmth. That's what we saw today in much of central and eastern England. 16 degrees in Cambridgeshire this afternoon. There's some more warmth arriving a little later on this week, so bear that in mind. Actually, for tomorrow we're between weather systems, which means a lot of quiet weather. Some mist and fog around first thing in the morning across England and Wales, a few scattered showers, but on the whole not looking too bad. This weather front in Scotland, bit of a nuisance. It's going to linger throughout much of the day, not producing that much in the way of rain, but the wind direction a real significant factor in the weather story across Scotland. Coming from the northeast, it is going to make it feel cool, only 5 to 7 degrees as a maximum, particularly under the rain. Cloudy, but a few scattered showers in Northern Ireland. For England and Wales, not a bad afternoon. We could again see 15 degrees, but by the end of the day, the winds will strengthen. Coming from the southwest, but we will see some rain. So it's milder air with that southwesterly wind, but it will bring some wetter weather as it drifts its way steadily north and east as we go into Wednesday. So showery outbreaks of rain across England and Wales on Wednesday. Behind it, somewhat brighter conditions, but look at the difference with the feel of the weather. That front is going to grind to a halt across Northern Ireland and Scotland. A strong northeasterly wind still making it feel quite cold. Gusts in excess of 30 to 40 miles an hour have an impact on the temperature. Gusts in excess of 30 miles an hour down to the southwest, but because the wind direction is coming from a milder source, 15 or 16 degrees not out of the question here, cooler further north and east. The showery unsettled theme is set to continue, but that milder source will be a feature once again. Down to the south. Enjoy. Clive.
OK, Louise, thank you. Louise Lear there. That's it. Now on BBC One, let's join our colleagues for all the news where you are. Have a very good night.
Welcome to BBC London. I'm Victoria Hollins. First, plans for a fan zone near Embankment Tube for the Champions League final have been criticised by local businesses and residents. It could see the area between Westminster and Blackfriars